Thank you so much for joining us for another Cumberland Family Academy session. Cumberland Family Academy is a program of Cumberland County Schools. Our goal is to provide families with information and resources to support the education of their children. So let's go right into today's session, already in progress.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for your patience. We know that we are surviving in a virtual world and technical difficulties do happen. And that is so timely tonight because we're going to talk about connecting with one another. And once we connect, we support one another and we're able to build strong community and family relationships. As you know, I'm Pamela Story, and I'm going to be your moderator for tonight. One of the things that we want you to keep in the back of your mind as you listen to our speakers, we are part of the Connections Matter initiative, and this is a product of North Carolina PTA Association, and it is a movement based upon an evidence-based program where we simply want you to think about simple concepts that are very complex. Think tonight with us about the relationships that you engage in every day at home, at school, in your community. And our objectives are we're trying to build hope and awareness in the community. We're going to discuss a little bit about how our brains develop, and I find that to be very amazing. We're going to provide you with some real life examples of how a simple connection with another human being can help things go so much better in life. And we are reaching out tonight to make a connection with each one of you. Next slide, please. It's all about being connected, as you see. The community, relationships, and our brains. And the brain is so phenomenal. Did you know that 80%, and I think this is on our next slide, that 80% of brain growth develops before a child is 3 years of age? Now just think about that for a moment. And I think we do have a next slide that kind of captures that. 80% of our brains are developed before the age of 3. And we all know that it's not until children reach the age of about 25 before they reach full brain development. So tonight, I want you to think about this before we go to our next speaker. If I connect with you and you connect with me, just think about connections and how happy we will be. Because it takes a healthy village to ensure that children know that they are safe and they are loved so they can thrive and they can grow. What is your connection tonight? Patricia Eaton will continue on with our program and talk with you a little bit about our connections. Patricia?
Thank you, Pam. So, how is our brain able to change? It has plasticity. You see the word right up there, which only means it's easy to change or shape through our experiences all our lifetime, those positive and or negative experiences. So let's take a moment to talk about negative and positive experiences. The birth of a child, the first day of pre-K, high school graduation. Those are typically those wonderful events in our lives. So they make connections in our brain, which are happy ones. But we also have some negative experiences or experiences called ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And that relates more to things like hunger, isolation, even COVID experience for young children or grown-ups. So those adverse experiences will affect you all of your life if they're not changed. But we've got some good news for you. Like Pam told you, the younger the brain, the greater the plasticity or capacity for change. And now they have discovered that even with adults, we still retain a lot of that plasticity. So we're able to have affected areas healed, so to speak. So throughout our lifetimes, we can reactivate connections that have been inactivated. and we can create new ones. Like that electrician at your house who's working on your electrical unit, that's the same kind of thought process for the connections in our brain. So in one word, next slide. Thank you, Stephanie. So in one word, what builds these connections? Pam alluded to it earlier, relationships. Think about this, like she said, an infant's brain doubles in size the first year of life. And I don't know about you, but I find that amazing. And approximately 80% of it is adult size by the age of 3. So whenever we learn something new, we make new brain connections. As a matter of fact, you're doing that right now, visiting with us tonight. So everyone's brain learns best by social interaction. And that is how we start to build trust. That trust is built through eye contact, through touching, through time spent together, and with people who are vulnerable with one another. And I'm talking about those you're real with, your parents, your siblings. You build even a deeper trust. So you see the importance of making connections matter? So building trust requires feeling safe, and we need to feel safe to think and learn. Stop a minute and think about when your child is upset. That's not a really good time to try to make logical conversation with them, because at that point, they're in what's called their downstairs brain. We're going to tell you a little bit about the upstairs and downstairs brain. Dr. Dan Siegel introduced the concept of the upstairs and downstairs brain in order to find a way to talk about how the brain works. So we're going to start with the downstairs brain. The downstairs brain is the more primitive area of your brain. It does all the survival things. So this is the part that regulates your breathing, your heart rate, and all other just basic functions. It also houses your emotional core. And so everything kicks in when stress happens. Think of monster movies now that we're in October. Have you ever sat there and yelled at the TV screen because the person didn't move when the monster was coming? Or the highly intelligent ones that don't go and run, or they run right into the monster. Those are they're all working in their downstairs brain. But the upstairs brain, that's where all our higher function happens. So we're talking about decision making. We're talking about setting priorities, understanding right from wrong, building relationships. So the upstairs brain, as Pam told you previously, is not well developed until about age 25, but it helps us regulate those impulsive, reactive downstairs brain issues so that we can think first and then act appropriately. So I want you to join me right now. I'm watching a quick little video to explain more about the upstairs and downstairs brain.
So I want to talk for a minute about how to teach the brain. One of the really important things that we know in trauma is that when we help people understand the injury trauma creates in the brain and help them understand how that impacts the way they respond to other events in the world, it really helps them and their families move forward in their healing. So lots of people have given ways to teach the brain. As a practitioner myself, I've taken a lot of the models from Dr. Dan Siegel, taken models from the Hahn Foundation for teaching in the optimistic classroom, and looking at some of the things Ledoux has done, and put them together and really challenged myself and folks that I educate about practicing really teaching the brain. So when I explain this to teenagers, I start with the hand model, okay? And I start by explaining that we're going to talk about the downstairs brain and the upstairs brain that everyone has. Formally, this is called the limbic system, and this is called the cerebral cortex. But what we're going to talk is downstairs brain and upstairs brain. So in your downstairs brain, this is where fight, flight, or freeze lives, okay? When threat comes at you, your body has 3 reactions it can make. It can fight, it can run away, or it can stay very still until the danger's gone. That's what this brain does, okay? This part of the brain. What's up here, the upstairs brain, its job, among many other things, is to solve problems, to help you calm down, solve problems, okay? And to tell the downstairs brain, I got this. We're gonna be okay. There's another solution. So what happens a lot of times to kids who've experienced trauma is if you think about these like muscles, because you've gone through a lot of threat, this downstairs part of the brain's been doing push-ups your whole life, okay? So this part of the brain's really strong. The part of your brain that solves problems hasn't had as much exercise because you've had to be really strong to be a survivor, a thriver. So what happens is that the brain gets what I call emotionally hijacked. This downstairs brain comes up on top of this brain, it takes over, okay? So the downstairs brain's in control. And so you fight, you run, you freeze. The only things that work when you're down here are things that calm you down. So they call them self-regulation skills. And that happens from connection. Somebody talking to you, helping you breathe, helping you feel your body calm down. Once that happens, then the upstairs brain can come back, and then you can solve problems. So that's how I try to explain to teenagers the downstairs brain and the upstairs brain, and what happens to them when they experience a threat. With young children, what I've found is they like animals. When I say young, probably 3 to 8 years old. Sometimes teenagers like it too. And so what we call this is the downstairs brain, that threat center again, is what I call the barking dog. If you think about when any noise or threat makes, usually a dog will bark. So this is the barking dog, okay? A problem solver is often called the wise owl. So upstairs is the wise owl, downstairs is the barking dog, okay? When the dog barks, the owl flies away. And so when the dog's barking, the only things they can do are maybe practice blowing bubbles, maybe practice breathing deeply, things that help the dog start calming down. And that's where you build their self-care strategies. They practice lots of different things to help the dog stop barking. The first skill being recognizing when their dog barks. Once they learn how to calm the barking dog, then the owl flies back, and then they can come up with solutions. And again, they're trying to get this muscle stronger. The problem for most people who are intervening, if you're talking to a family, most parents are going to naturally start with redirection and consequences for negative behavior. That's the first place they go. They're shaking fingers and telling somebody, stop that, you need to do this. That's an upstairs brain intervention, while most children who've experienced trauma are downstairs. So the term Siegel uses is you connect, then you redirect. The only thing that will calm a barking dog or the downstairs brain is helping that child calm down. And only then, once you teach the child to calm down, can you engage the part of the brain that solves problems and actually come up with solutions for better behavior choices. And that's why it's important to respond to the need, respond to the safety needs that get kicked up by threat, and not just react to the behavior that happens.
We want to hear from you. Have you heard of Cumberland Family Academy? We have a program here in Cumberland County Schools that is specifically for our families. We want to continue providing you with information and resources to help you become full partners in the education of your young people. So, what we need you to do is visit our website and complete a brief survey. As we're thinking about programs and information sessions and offerings for families, we want to hear from you. What topics would be most helpful to you? What would you like to see? What times should we offer them? We want to tailor our resources and information sessions and everything for families around what you need and what you desire. I promise it will only take 10 to 15 minutes. Visit the link below, complete a brief survey, and help us help you help your child succeed in school and ultimately in life. Thank you.
Thank you. But before we can react to those needs, all of us know we respond to stress differently. Our personal stress response is influenced by the skills we've managed to develop in our life experiences. And think about it, all stress isn't bad. When you have to get dinner on the table at a certain time or have a deadline at work, it's nice to have a little extra stress to make it happen. And then mild kind of stress helps us to learn how to cope with other stress. The issue becomes when we're talking about higher levels of stress, such as an illness, death, losing a job. And depending on what else is happening in our lives and the people we've connected to, this response could be stronger than what we need or is healthy for us. So how do we reduce that response? Well, let's consider how we do it. What methods do we use to move from our downstairs brain to our upstairs brain? Some of us walk, some of us exercise, call a friend, use prayer, whatever it may be. That helps us to calm down. And our body's reacting to the stress in ways that we probably didn't know. For example, your body under stress releases cortisol, a distress hormone that causes your body to automatically act in a primitive manner, your downstairs brain. But the good news is your body also releases serotonin, and that is the rest and digest chemical. What do I mean by rest and digest? It makes you stop, it calms you down enough for you to start thinking rationally and thinking in the right trail instead of the primitive one, the downstairs brain one. And how do we get that to circulate through our body? By deep breathing. So it's the kind of stuff you do when you meditate or you exercise. But right now, technology like this makes me stressful. So I want you to join me in that deep breathing. Let's see if we can get that serotonin moving through our body. Take a deep breath. Hold it. 3, 2, 1. Exhale. Let's try it one more time. Come on. Take a deep breath. 3, 2, 1. Exhale. There, we're well on our way to de-stressing before nighttime. Wanda?
Hey, thanks, Patricia. Okay, so let's talk about trauma. What is trauma? Trauma is any experience that is overwhelming and or threatening, like a serious injury, serious illness, experiencing violence in the home or at work or in the community or at school. But what's interesting about trauma is that trauma is personal. What might be experienced as trauma or something serious to one person may be totally different or not overwhelming to another person. So trauma is very personal. And it's influenced by our lived experiences, our relationships and community. Our experiences are influenced by things that happened to us in the past, current circumstances, as well as the support systems that we have. It is very, very important for us to understand that the effects of trauma can linger on or happen way after the traumatic event. So a parent, a teacher, a coworker, or a friend, they may not understand why someone is acting in a way that doesn't make sense to them. But they could be acting that way because of a trauma that you're not aware of that didn't happen, that happened a long time ago. So trauma is like that. Now, relationships, though, they can prevent or minimize the possible impact of potentially traumatic experiences. And we need supportive relationships and a thriving community. All those things can reduce the impact and even prevent threatening circumstances from being experienced as trauma. So in a nutshell, healthy relationships help us get through the tough times. So in the absence though of a supportive relationship and community, trauma can affect us over our lifespan and even be passed down to the next generation unintentionally. So without support, trauma can lead to physical and mental health problems and unhealthy ways of coping with such things, such as using alcohol excessively or drugs. The important thing, though, to remember is that all this can be prevented. We know now more than ever about how we can help people and communities heal from trauma. Let's take a minute just to look at some of these slides or these pictures of potentially traumatic experiences. Some of these may be difficult to look at. They might be upsetting. They may even trigger personal memories or cause a high level of stress. And I'm sure we see this picture of a child who looks lonely, and maybe a child who might be being bullied, or maybe a domestic violence situation at home or crime in the streets. And I'm all sure that all of us can think of other situations that we've experienced personally that could be potentially traumatic experiences. However, in the midst of potential trauma, we need to think about some words or actions that can unite us. What is already happening in our communities, in our schools, in our families to deal with potentially traumatic experiences? When we think about our communities, we have agencies that provide concrete support, financial support, healthcare, affordable housing. All of these types of things can deal with or prevent potentially traumatic experiences. We also have programs like the North Carolina 211, which is a information line you can call to find out about free resources in the community. It's confidential and it can help you with human service needs and such. And then we think about our school system. Just by being here tonight at the Cumberland Family Academy is a resource for families in our community. We also have support for remote learning. When you think about that, what about the 5-day meal bundles and the laptops and connectivity? All of those different things have been put into place to help deal with potentially traumatic experiences for families. And then we think about ourselves, our personal experiences. How are we, how am I, how are you personally impacting others? What are we doing to lessen the impact of potentially traumatic experiences in the lives of those people that we care about? Okay, so let's take a look at a minute. We're going to talk about developing relationships. And wherever you are, at home, school, work, let's read the first one together aloud. Every young person should have a caring adult in their life. When parents can't be there, teachers, coaches, and mentors can make a big difference. Now let's look at the next statement. It says, the resilience of children depends on all of us. The resilience of children depends on all of us. So it's all about developing relationships. The family is the child's first and foremost environment. And if we're all in the business about helping children, we need to reach out to families. We must meet families where they are. We must provide support that they may need or say that they need to develop caring, supportive relationships with their children. Now let's think about a traumatic event for a child. And Patricia alluded to this when she was sharing her information. Children may experience a change in how they view their world after a traumatic experience. But it's really important for us to reestablish a sense of safety and security. We need to talk together with our children using simple language that your child can understand. And at the same time, reassure children that adults in their lives are there to help them feel safe. Help them feel safe. But you have to take care of yourself when you're doing all of this. So it's like the thing at the airplane that says, put your mask on so that you can be able to help someone put theirs on, someone who might need a little extra help. So as a parent, if you need supports and connections so that you can be that person for your child, it's very honorable and important for you to reach out for that support. Again, the more connections, the more relationships, the better it is for children's developing brains, for parents and families, and ultimately for communities. Okay, so what do we mean by relationships? The first slide says what? Brief supportive interaction that makes a compassionate connection with another person who may be previously unknown to us. That could be a smile, a wave, a nod. But those brief moments can lead to what we call relationships or close, secure connections formed through emotional bonds over time. These bonds are strengthened by shared experiences. Things that we do every day as a family. Maybe we go out to dinner or we sit down or eat together, or maybe we worship together with our friends and coworkers and colleagues. What is something we do regularly to increase that bond, that close connection? These relationships, though, they help provide support and buffer the negative effects of trauma or stress or loneliness. We hear that old song, you get by with a little help from your friends, all these different things, it makes a difference. So you consider your relationship with children, your children, other people's children, any child. But what we want to do when we're interacting with children is we want to focus on being loving, kind, and generally interested in them. Whether you're a teacher, a neighbor, a coach, family member, friend, being a buffer means doing things aimed at reducing stress, building positive relationships, and strengthening life skills. All these things are important for all children, but they're especially important for children who have experienced adverse childhood experiences, or what we call ACEs. Simple gestures like a smile or a thumbs up can be an expression of support that can build that self-confidence in a child and to help them thrive. So when we become trauma sensitive or trauma informed, we start to see people through the lens of compassion. We look at people that may be doing something strange or odd that we don't quite know where they're coming from, and we don't say, "What's wrong with you?" We use that compassion and we say, "What happened to you? What traumatic experience may have happened to you?" And then we're more likely to make connections with others and have more positive encounters when we look at people through that lens of being compassionate. And we want to treat others with the way we want to be treated, essentially. And we come away with the belief that everyone is doing the best they can with what they have been given. I think when we look at people like that, we're going to have more connections and more relationships. So when we look at this list here, it says at the bottom, to-do list, the first thing says, contact your lifelong friend to ask how they are doing lately. You know, now is a time that people want to hear from people. And you might be surprised, on the other end, that person may say to you, "You made my day by reaching out and connecting with me." Or we might be the person that somebody reaches out and connects to, and we say, "That call made my day." So with this, you can also, what's the last one says, offer an encouraging smile to a parent whose child is throwing a tantrum at the store. How many times have we seen this and said, "Whoa, they need to learn how to handle their child"? Maybe we can flip it around and say, "I know what you've been through," and give them an encouraging smile so that they can feel like they're not alone in this situation. The slide we referred to earlier said that resilience of children depends on all of us. So Stephanie is going to tell you a little bit more about resilience.
The resilience of an individual depends to a great extent on the relationships and the community. The more we learn about resilience, the more we recognize that that is the systems around us, our family, our neighborhoods, our churches, our schools. They all influence the ability of both children and adults to be resilient. Again, that's why connections matter. You can just take a few seconds and think about what resilience looks like to you and how it is developed. The two-generation approach recognizes that when we reach out and connect with parents, we have a powerful effect on their children too. Recognition of the importance of the two-generation approach has led to be more effective for the whole family interventions that work with parents and children together. These interventions address a wide range of issues, including substance abuse and mental illness, and poverty. For example, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, there is a Head Start program that is helping parents to earn degrees, college degrees, in the healthcare field while their child attends Head Start. Why would they do this? It's because we know that investing in early childhood education will yield a 7 to 10% annual return on our investment and reduce social costs. We also know that a parent who completes a college degree doubles his or her income. A $3,000 difference in a parent's income when a child is young translates into a 17% increase in the child's future earnings. So it makes good economic sense to invest in supporting both the child and the parent together. It's not a theory, it's a fact. Caring, successful communities are built through healthy, supportive relationships, one relationship at a time. Communities that are connected through close, supportive relationships are safer, children do better, even those children who face struggles and tough times, and overall, people are healthy. So what's your connection? Look for simple, everyday examples, today, tomorrow, and even next week. I'm going to turn this over to Pam to close out our Cumberland Academy.
So in closing tonight, I'd like for everyone, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And we want you to know that we have a team here in Cumberland County Schools: Patricia Eaton, Stephanie Shook, myself, Wanda Wesley, and Dr. Natasha Scott. Dr. Scott actually brought the Connections Matter initiative to Cumberland County Schools. Think about all that you have heard tonight. And again, we want you to know that just connecting with us tonight, you have made a new connection, or maybe strengthened a connection that we've already had. We'd like for you, if you have any questions, we will take a moment for those, but I would like to just share the words of one of my favorite songs. And if not for those who loved us and who cared enough to show us, where would we be today? What about the children? They need us more now than ever before. Remember, connections matter. What's your connection?
Thank you so much for watching today's Cumberland Family Academy session. If you enjoyed today's session, be sure to visit our website listed below. On the Cumberland Family Academy website, we have numerous other sessions available to you, our families. Remember, our goal is to provide you with information and resources to support the education of your child. Thank you again for watching. Have a great day.